For decades, Princess Anne quietly carried the private thoughts of Queen Elizabeth Roman II, guarding them with unwavering loyalty. But now she has unveiled a message about Catherine that left both Prince William and King Charles utterly speechless. The palace, long thought to follow its neat traditional order, suddenly faces a shift no one predicted. Late one evening, behind the closed doors of Buckingham Palace, Anne revealed something weighty, personal, and long hidden. A final royal wish that could reshape the future of the monarchy. Music, so what exactly did she disclose? A whisper that could change history. The palace was unusually still that night, the kind of silence that presses against every wall and stretches through every corridor. Outside, fog curled around the iron gates like a restless ghost, hiding the world beyond in a soft, muffled gray. Inside, far from the public eye, decisions were quietly being shaped, decisions that would ripple far beyond these stone walls. Anne moved with purpose through the dim hallways, her footsteps muted against the carpet, carrying a sense of inevitability. She wasn't chasing drama or confrontation. She carried a message, one worn soft from years of holding, one that demanded to be heard. In a small somber room heavy with history, Anne called for King Charles and Prince William. No aides, no staff, just the three of them. The chamber seemed to hold its breath. Heavy curtains hung over tall windows, and the faces of past monarchs in ornate frames looked down from the walls, silent witnesses. She placed the letter on the table without ceremony, the folds creased from constant reading, the edges softened by careful hands. Charles picked it up first, his fingers brushing the paper as though it might crumble under his touch. His hands trembled slightly, a subtle reveal of the weight it carried. William leaned closer, scanning every line twice, his expression unreadable but tense, as though he were reading a history he wasn't yet prepared to face. The letter's words were simple yet seismic. It named someone unexpected, not Charles, not William, but Catherine, the Princess of Wales. The Queen's message was clear. The future of the monarchy rested not solely on a king or the old hierarchies, but on a woman who had already won the hearts of the people. Catherine was not merely a consort. She was a symbol, a quiet force that had rebuilt faith in the institution without fanfare. Her ability to command respect while remaining approachable, her instinct to protect and guide, had convinced the Queen that she was the one capable of steering the monarchy through uncertain times. Charles's voice finally broke the silence, low and hesitant. "This isn't how it's done," he murmured almost to himself. Fatigue etched his features, lending a weight that went beyond years. William remained silent, music his hands clenching and unclenching. Eyes never leaving the letter, Anne did not argue. She did not need to. Her presence alone carried the Queen's conviction and her own quiet certainty. The world outside slept, unaware that the fate of the crown hung in delicate balance, resting on a woman who had never sought power. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the palace, Catherine sat in her own quiet space, the dim light of a lamp casting a soft glow. She had just tucked George, Charlotte, and Louis into bed, the rhythm of family life still pulsing in her veins. A cup of tea sat forgotten at her side, cooling in the still air. She looked out at the fogged garden beyond the window, restless yet unaware of the monumental shift being orchestrated just above her. She had never sought recognition or authority. She had sought only to serve, to nurture, to guide quietly with dedication and grace. And it was precisely this approach, so understated yet profoundly effective, that the Queen had recognized. Back in the small meeting room, Anne smoothed her skirt and finally broke the tension. She did not wait for agreement, did not seek validation. "Whatever we decide," she said softly, the words steady and resolute, "the world is changing. We can either change with it or be left behind." Silence followed, but in that pause, something shifted. A decision began to take root, subtle but persistent, like the first sliver of dawn cutting through darkness. The monarchy, long thought to be a rigid institution, was already beginning to bend, not through proclamations or spectacle, but through quiet acknowledgement of a truth long whispered, a truth embodied by a woman who had unknowingly become the cornerstone of the crown's future. Time seemed suspended as the three of them absorbed the weight of the moment. No grand announcements, no flashing cameras, no ceremonial gestures, just a simple letter. the unwavering presence of Anne, and the slow, inevitable recognition that the monarchy's survival required more than tradition. It required someone who could inspire trust, someone whose strength lay in action rather than title, in empathy rather than command. Catherine's presence in the palace that night, unknowing and unassuming, became a symbol of possibility that the crown could endure not because of rigid rules, but because it adapted, because it embraced quiet courage and steadfast loyalty. By the time the meeting ended, the letter remained on the table, its edges still soft from repeated readings, but its impact already etched into the minds of those present. Across the palace, Catherine took a final sip of her now cold tea, never imagining that the course of her life and the very essence of the monarchy was being rewritten in those quiet moments. Outside, the fog lingered, wrapping the palace in secrecy, but inside, a whisper of history had already been spoken. A whisper that would grow to shape a future the world would one day recognize. So what hidden whispers in Buckingham Palace were quietly shaping a future the world would one day recognize the Queen's final wish? London woke slowly that morning, the sky a heavy gray as sunlight struggled to spill over the city. Inside Buckingham Palace, the halls were quiet, almost too quiet, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. In a room tucked deep within the palace, a rare gathering was underway, pulled together at the last moment. It wasn't routine, the air carried a tension no one dared speak of, yet everyone felt it. Princess Anne arrived first, moving with a precision that left no room for doubt. She carried only a leather folder, but what it contained was far heavier than its modest weight. King Charles entered next, his calm mask unable to fully hide the lines of worry etched on his face. And then came Prince William, composed yet tense, the weight of legacy pressing into every step. They all knew something pivotal was about to unfold. Anne placed the folder on the polished mahogany table and opened it. The words inside were clear, deliberate, written in the careful, precise hand of their mother. Queen Elizabeth had made her final wishes known. It was a quiet command that carried enormous force. Catherine, the woman born outside royalty, but tempered by spirit and grace, was meant to shape the monarchy's future, not as a consort, merely supporting the next king, but as a queen in her own right. The room seemed to shiver. Charles's hand slammed onto the table, his voice sharp with disbelief. This is madness. The line of succession isn't something that music can just be rewritten. Anne met his gaze, steady and unwavering. Mother was not confused. She said she was certain, and she wanted us to understand. William's voice came next, quieter, weighed with both anger and sorrow. And me, what of everything I was raised to become? Anne's face softened just enough to let him hear reason through the storm. You are still vital, but the monarchy must survive. That is what she saw. That is what she wanted you to see, too. William lowered his eyes, fists clenched, a part of him etched, feeling sidelined in the narrative he had believed was his destiny. Yet deep down he could not deny what he had seen. Catherine had faced relentless scrutiny, weathered storms the rest of them could barely endure, and had emerged not diminished, but stronger. The people loved her, not because of her title, but because of her unwavering presence, her ability to act with kindness while carrying an invisible weight. Perhaps, he thought bitterly, she had been the true queen all along. Outside life continued with the deceptive calm of normally. Catherine went about her days as always, visiting hospitals, comforting children, championing causes close to her heart. Every handshake, every sincere smile, every quiet act of service strengthened the foundation of a future the late queen had quietly envisioned. Meanwhile, whispers started to circulate, rumors of secret meetings, of royal tension, monarchy being quietly reshaped. The tabloids tried to make sense of it, but nothing they printed could capture the quiet power of the shift underway. Anne remained the anchor, her steadiness holding the fragile balance between tradition and change. She understood what the others were still learning. History music was not bound by old rules when the future demanded courage. Buckingham Palace, long seen as a fortress of unbroken tradition, had begun to show cracks. The death of Queen Elizabeth in September 2022 had opened the door, but what now poured through was unprecedented. Change once whispered about behind closed doors, now moved like a slow, deliberate tide, reshaping alliances and expectations without fanfare. Catherine, for all her grace and composure, remained unaware of the full extent of what had transpired, and perhaps that was exactly as it should be. Her life was defined not by the headlines, but by the moments she created, calm, resilient, and authentic. Yet every smile, every act of compassion, every visit to those in need was stitching her deeper into the monarchy the Queen had imagined. The palace corridors, the quiet meeting rooms, the intricate network of advisors, they all knew this was a turning point. What Queen Elizabeth had left behind was more than a crown. It was a vision carefully passed down, waiting for the right heart to embrace it. And so the world carried on, oblivious to the quiet storm growing within Buckingham Palace. Tradition, expectation, and legacy were being challenged, not in public, but in the hushed certainty of those who understood. Catherine unknowingly was at the center. The monarchy was changing, not through declaration, but through resolve, grace, and the quiet insistence of a queen who had seen the future clearly. And as the world mourned, what hidden signs revealed how Queen Elizabeth's foresight had quietly shaped the future before her final farewell. How Catherine became the monarchy's unexpected anchor. Buckingham Palace was steeped in silence when the news came, yet the world already felt its weight. Queen Elizabeth Roman, too, had passed, and with her an era of certainty and tradition that seemed eternal. Charles now wore the crown, but it did not settle on him as it had on his mother. The crown gleamed, heavy with expectation, yet the man beneath it struggled to match its weight. Years of public scrutiny, a tumultuous marriage, and a lifetime of whispered judgments left him exposed. The world respected him, but it was unsure if it could ever truly love him. Charles's reign began under a cloud of skepticism. Each gesture, every word, was measured against the unshakable standard his mother had set. He searched for answers in history, poring over the reigns of kings who had weathered crises, yet still found no map for the fragile present. Nights passed in quiet reflection, a silent reminder that the monarchy was no longer merely tradition. It needed relevance, connection, and above all, faith from those it ruled. For Prince William, the burden was different, but just as crushing. He was the future in every headline, every photograph, every whispered conversation in corridors lined with history. Yet the weight pressed down harder with each passing day, especially when he looked at his children's bright, trusting eyes. Could he prepare them for a world where the crown might no longer matter? The stakes were personal, far beyond the public ceremonies or polished images. His love for Catherine intertwined with his duty, yet the more the world adored her, the more he felt his own light dim in comparison. And then there was Harry, whose words from across the Atlantic cut like winter wind through the palace halls. Accusations, music confessions, and confrontations stirred old wounds that the monarchy could not ignore. The family faced not just external scrutiny, but fractures within. Each comment and each revelation threatening the fragile balance of perception they had worked so tirelessly to maintain. Amid all this, Catherine moved differently. She did not chase headlines. She did not seek the spotlight. Yet her presence reshaped the room, her calm determination becoming the quiet heartbeat of the family. While the world debated the relevance of kings and crowns, she embodied the enduring truth they needed: consistency, grace, and authenticity. Her strength was subtle, almost invisible to those fixed on spectacle, but unmistakable to anyone willing to see it. Even before Elizabeth's final days, the Queen had understood something few others had noticed. She had seen cracks forming in the centuries-old institution and knew that its survival depended not on bloodlines or laws, but on the people within it who inspired trust and hope. In her quiet foresight, she recognized Catherine as the unexpected anchor, the figure capable of bridging the distance between tradition and a world moving forward. Not because of ambition, but because of integrity, humility, and quiet influence, Catherine carried the promise of a monarchy that might still resonate with hearts across the globe. The public, meanwhile, wrestled with its feelings. Initially, a collective grief united the nation. Yet, the cohesion proved fleeting. Younger generations questioned the monarchy's role, while places like Australia and the Caribbean debated the relevance of a crown across oceans. The House of Windsor, despite centuries of unbroken legacy, could no longer rely on automatic loyalty. The world was shifting, and the family could sense it in every glance, every headline, every silent evening in the palace corridors. To the outside eye, life at Buckingham remained impeccable. Ceremonies unfolded with elegance, polished photographs captured smiles, and the monarchy's public face remained flawless. Yet beneath the surface, subtle currents were reshaping the very foundations of power. Fault lines formed quietly, almost imperceptibly, signaling that old ways alone could not sustain the institution. The crown needed more than lineage. It needed belief, authenticity, and someone who could inspire a new generation. In this delicate balance, Catherine emerged not as a contender, but as a natural pillar. Her calm resilience, her ability to act without desire for dominion, and her understanding of the monarchy's role in a modern world made her indispensable. She became the quiet symbol of continuity in a time of uncertainty, the living reassurance that the House of Windsor could survive upheaval, not through authority alone, but through genuine connection. Now the world watches with bated breath. The centuries-old institution teeters between tradition and transformation. Its future shaped by subtle gestures more than grand declarations. Nothing remains hidden forever, and the palace, no matter how ornate, cannot mask the truths it must confront. The monarchy's survival will not hinge on titles, wealth, or ceremony. It will rest in the quiet strength of a woman who never sought the crown, but perhaps carries it more naturally than anyone before her. In this unfolding story, the crown no longer belongs solely to the king. It belongs in spirit and influence to the unexpected figure whose presence may yet define the monarchy's next chapter. Catherine stands at the center, unassuming yet pivotal, the linchpin in a royal world that must prove its worth all over again. And as history watches, one question lingers unspoken. Can the monarchy rise from this quiet revolution? Or will centuries of tradition crumble beneath the weight of a modern world? But will Catherine's quiet gestures and private words reveal truths strong enough to reshape centuries of royal expectation? What secrets lie beyond her public image? The rise of Catherine, Duchess of Cambridge. Quiet gestures and private words often reveal more than public speeches. And in the story of Catherine, Duchess of Cambridge, those subtle truths have shaped a life far beyond ordinary expectation. Born Catherine Elizabeth Middleton on January 9, 1982, at the Royal Berkshire Hospital in Reading. She entered the world without crowns or castles, yet surrounded by a family that valued hard work, resilience, and a quiet sense of purpose. Her father, Michael Middleton, was a dedicated flight dispatcher, and her mother, Carol, a former flight attendant, instilled in her the importance of determination and humility. On her father's side, the family had long-standing connections to British society, while her mother's lineage traced back to hardworking coal miners, a blend of tradition and grounded practicality that would quietly define Catherine's character. At the age of 2, Catherine's family moved abroad to Amman, Jordan, where her father worked for British Airways. Attending an English-speaking nursery school, she adapted early to new surroundings and cultures, learning lessons in independence before most. Children could tie their shoes. By 1986, they returned to England, settling in Berkshire, and Catherine began formal schooling at St. Andrew's School. Even as a young child, she displayed maturity and independence, attending part-time boarding and learning to care for herself. In 1987, her mother founded a mail orderer party supplies business, Party Pieces. What started as a small venture quickly grew, offering the Middleton children excellent educational opportunities and teaching Catherine lessons in patience, perseverance, and building something meaningful from scratch. By 1995, the family moved to Bucklebury, a peaceful village surrounded by nature, and Catherine enrolled in Marlborough College, where her leadership qualities flourished. She captained the girls' field hockey team and completed the rigorous Gold Duke of Edinburgh Award, showing early signs of determination, humility, and a drive to excel. Even minor setbacks, such as a brief surgery to remove a lump from her head, were met with quiet resilience as she returned to her studies without drama or complaint. Upon finishing school, Catherine Musick faced a pivotal decision. Accepted to the University of Edinburgh, she chose to take a gap year to explore the world. She studied art in Florence at the British Institute, volunteered in Chile through Raleigh International on community projects, and even worked as a deckhand in the bustling port of Southampton, embracing challenges without hesitation. These experiences would shape her adaptability, empathy, and sense of service, qualities that would later define her royal role. Eventually, Catherine enrolled at the University of St. Andrews in Scotland, initially studying psychology before switching to art history. Immersed in university life, she joined the Lumsden Club, organized charitable events, and took a part-time job as a waitress, proving she could balance ambition with humility. It was here that she met Prince William, a friendship that blossomed quietly into love. By 2002, living together with friends and sharing a passion for art history, their bond strengthened, though they remained careful to avoid media attention. It wasn't until 2004, during a vacation in Switzerland, that the world caught a glimpse of their romance. Their relationship faced challenges, including a brief breakup in 2007 under intense media scrutiny. Catherine endured this period with grace, emerging stronger and more confident, maintaining her composure while public opinion fluctuated wildly. Despite being subjected to cruel tabloid nicknames, she never reacted with anger or defensiveness, instead choosing to focus on her personal growth and her relationship with William. In November 2010, the couple announced their engagement, and Catherine began preparing for life in the royal spotlight. She reclaimed her full name, embraced her duties, and stepped into her new role with quiet determination. On April 29, 2011, she married Prince William in a globally watched ceremony, becoming the Duchess of Cambridge. Though the weight of tradition and public expectation was immense, Catherine remained grounded, embodying kindness, resilience, and unwavering strength. Her journey from a comfortable, hard-working family to the pinnacle of royal responsibility demonstrates how patience, humility, and inner fortitude can transform an ordinary life into one of extraordinary impact. Could Catherine's quiet strength be the hidden force transforming ordinary royal life into moments of extraordinary influence? What makes her presence truly unforgettable? Grace, heart, and the weight of the crown. Amid the dazzling pageantry of royal life, Catherine's presence always seemed quietly extraordinary. She wasn't just another face in the endless line of formal events. She was someone who carried both grace and purpose, transforming every engagement into something meaningful. From the earliest days of her public life, long before she became the Duchess of Cambridge, Catherine had a remarkable instinct for giving. In 2007, she organized a photography exhibition to raise funds for UNICEF, and later hosted a charity roller disco brought in €100,000 for Oxford Children's Hospital and mental health initiatives. Her hands-on work with sick children and hospices revealed a compassion that would later define her role within the monarchy. By the time she married Prince William, Catherine's path was clear. She was determined to marry the weight of tradition with the warmth of genuine care. Just months after their wedding, instead of accepting lavish gifts, the couple set up a charitable fund supporting 26 organizations. Every gesture, every effort reflected her unwavering commitment to causes close to her heart, proving that her influence extended far beyond ceremonial appearances. Motherhood added another dimension to Catherine's story. The world celebrated the arrivals of Prince George in 2013, Princess Charlotte in 2015, and Prince Louis in 2018. Each birth was a moment of joy, not just for the royal family, but for the public who watched with admiration as Catherine balanced the demands of motherhood with her ever-growing royal responsibilities and charitable work, all with remarkable poise and grace. Yet behind the headlines, away from cameras and media scrutiny, she continued to shape her legacy quietly, proving that influence is often most profound when exercised with discretion. In 2018, for example, Catherine donated 7 of her hair to the Little Princess Trust, providing wigs for children undergoing cancer treatment. This intimate gesture, inspired by her hairdresser, Joey Wheeler, spoke volumes about the kind of generosity she embodied: thoughtful, private, and profoundly human. It was a simple yet powerful act that reflected her commitment to helping others in meaningful, personal ways. As her role within the royal family expanded, Catherine's influence grew in subtle but unmistakable ways. She never sought the spotlight for its own sake, preferring instead to dedicate herself to initiatives that truly mattered. Mental health awareness, child welfare, and early education became causes she championed consistently and empathetically. That the issues we face in childhood are ones we can cope with and learn from. But for some children, learning to cope with life's challenges can be a struggle. Her actions demonstrated a rare ability to navigate the immense public scrutiny of royal life while remaining authentic and grounded. Admirers and critics alike began to recognize a woman whose impact was measured not in ceremonies or headlines, but in the lives she touched and the hearts she moved, quietly reshaping what it meant to be a modern royal. Yet her rise did not come without challenges for William. The admiration Catherine earned, even from the Queen herself, left him navigating a delicate mix of awe, pride, and quiet insecurity. He loved her deeply and admired her unwavering strength, yet there was an unspoken tension. Catherine's natural brilliance sometimes outshone the careful, cautious upbringing that had molded him into the heir he was. Watching her capture the confidence of a nation and the respect of monarchs, William could not help but reflect on his own journey. Had he been too reserved, too burdened by the expectations of a lifetime spent preparing for a throne? Despite these doubts, his feelings were never rooted in resentment. Instead, he approached her with a new kind of reverence, recognition that her authenticity rather than ambition had earned her a place in history alongside him. The defining moment came when the Queen entrusted Catherine with an unprecedented responsibility. Many expected a simple acceptance or refusal. Yet Catherine's response was measured, thoughtful, and revealing. She acknowledged the desire to serve, but reminded everyone that the heart of family must remain intact. She asked for time, a pause, to weigh the delicate balance between royal duty and the private needs of her loved ones. In that moment, it became clear why she had been chosen, not because she sought power, but because she possessed the rare ability to merge strength with empathy and duty with compassion. Catherine's story is not simply about titles on appearances. It is about a woman who redefined what it means to be royal. Someone whose influence grows quietly, steadily, and profoundly, touching lives far beyond the palace walls. Through acts of kindness, unwavering dedication, and thoughtful courage, she has shown that true royalty is not worn on the head. It is carried in the heart. So, what do you think Princess Anne's revelation means for William and Charles's future? And how will it impact Catherine? We'd like to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like and share.